Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if this is your first time listening to the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And if you're a returning listener, we'll leave us a rating and review so we can hear what you like about the show and anything we can do to make it work a little bit harder for you. All right, today we've got a good show. We're going to be talking to Anthony Vicino. Anthony Vicino is a best-selling author, real estate investor, and a serial entrepreneur committed to helping people maximize their return on life. Now, he is the founding partner of Invictus Capital, a multifamily acquisition firm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he is the host of the Multifamily Investing Made Simple podcast, as well as the author of Passive Investing Made Simple. Anthony firmly believes that investing shouldn't be complicated, it shouldn't be scary, and it shouldn't be overwhelming. Let's welcome to the show, Anthony Vicino.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. John, you got like the best radio voice, by the way. I could listen to it all day, especially like just keep saying my bio over and over. I love it.
Well, yeah, it probably helps when I'm saying great things about you and your bio and all these wonderful things. So I'm happy to hear that. Well, listen, enough of me talking about you. Why don't you take a minute or two and give us a little bit more context on your background?
Yeah. So the bio is always interesting because it's like the highlight reel. It's all the good stuff that's happened in life. But for me, like to understand how I got to where I am, you have to go back quite a ways to college where things weren't really going so good for me. I have really severe ADHD, and coming out of college, that really manifested in some ways that were hard for my life, which was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going. I knew the corporate route wasn't going to work for me because I was just getting fired from like literally every job I ever had. And I wasn't like entrepreneurial at that point. So I wasn't the kid plucking flowers and selling it back to the neighbor or anything like that. I didn't have a lemonade stand when I was a kid. So I wasn't thinking, oh, I'll go start a business and do my own thing. I just came out of college thinking, I have to do me. I have to pursue freedom and I have to pursue the things that spark my soul with passion, which led me to going and becoming a professional rock climber for a long time, which was really cool. Like, don't get me wrong, climbing rocks all the time is fun, but it doesn't pay very well. And this all came to a head when I tried to marry this woman, and I went to her family, went to her parents, and I said, hey, can I marry your daughter? And they're like, what are you going to do to provide for her? And that was the first time when like society's expectation of like what it meant to like provide a living or to like have financial security, like really smacked me in the face. And I was like, that's a good question. What am I going to do? So I did what anybody would do. I audited my skills. I said, what am I good at? What can I make money at? I assumed writers make money. I thought Stephen King, that guy makes money. So that's what I did. I started writing science fiction and fantasy novels. And I wrote 12 novels. They did pretty good. But in the end, there came this point in that relationship where it fell apart. Like it just didn't work. And that's life. But what it did for me was suddenly like I was on my own adrift. And I was like, I've been pursuing this thing over here for this reason that really wasn't my reason anymore, which was, make money and do this thing. And so I was kind of adrift. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And a buddy of mine at that point was like, hey man, while you're trying to figure this out and trying to find like your path, why don't you come in and help me build this business? And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about that, but let's give it a shot. So that was a high-rise window washing company. And it turned out like that was a good use of our skill set as rock climbers and our network of rock climbing buddies. And so we did that. And that was the bug. That was like the entrepreneurial bug where I realized like, oh my goodness, building businesses is a way for my inputs to be correlated to my outputs. And it's like live, real-time problem solving every single day. Like, how can I add value to the customers more than my competitors? And that was really fun for me. So like for the last 10 years, that's what I've been doing is building businesses of different types. And real estate is just another one of those businesses. And it's interesting because like real estate kept trying to get in front of me at different points in my life that I just kept ignoring. When I was in college, my roommate and his dad were doing fix and flips, and I was living with them doing some construction for cheap rent. And all I learned out of that was like, I can swing a hammer, but I can't hit a nail. Like I hate construction. Like it's just not fun for me. And so that was my experience with real estate initially. And I think a lot of people think when they think of real estate, that's what they think of, like fix and flips. And so for the next 10 years, I had nothing to do with real estate, had no interest in it until a buddy came to me and he's like, hey, I'm buying these quads. Do you want to do that together? I was like, I don't want to do any of the work, but I'll passively invest in that. Like I'll give you money. And so we did that. And that was a great investment. I was like, this is really cool. Fast forward another couple of years, I was hit with this question suddenly, like, who actually owns all these buildings? Not just like the quads and the triplexes and the single family homes, but suddenly I was like, who owns these apartment buildings and these skyscrapers? Like, I kind of never reflected on that question. And so I assumed at the time it was like rich corporations and like rich families and things like that. But as I started to unpack it, I was like, oh my goodness, like most of these buildings are actually owned by mom and pop owners. They're owned by people not too different than us. And maybe it's people pooling their resources to go get these things. So that was this light bulb moment in my life where I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can build a business and scale it around real estate. And so that's what I did. I went and started buying multifamily assets, started scaling from there. Now we have about $30 million of assets under management, and we're vertically integrated, which means we have a property management company in-house. We handle our residents, their maintenance requests, the leasing. Like, we serve those families every single day. And all the way to the other side, which is we partner with passive investors on these deals. And so to be able to serve both our families, the residents, the families of our employees, and then the families of our investors is like how we're really trying to make an impact. So that's my long, convoluted story of how I got here.
Anthony, thank you for giving us that background, man. I want to recap a little bit of it because, and I'll start kind of reverse chronological order, but right now you've got about $30 million of assets under management, vertically integrated, meaning that you guys do everything from property management, construction, as well as raising the capital for your deals and working with passive investors as well. But prior to that, you wrote 12 novels. You did that really because you were trying to figure out how do you have more stability with your finances, which I want to come back to. And then prior to that, you said that you were a professional rock climber. You suffered from ADHD in college, realized corporate life wasn't going to work, and you became a professional rock climber. I'm just curious, why professional rock climbing? And what does that mean if you weren't making money doing that? I mean, like, what do you mean when you say professional rock climber?
So there's this line from a movie, I can't remember what it is, but it's effectively, we play with the gifts the gods give us. And it just happened to be like, I was like physically gifted at rock climbing. And so that's where I pursued, and like it paid. And so I was professional in the sense that like I was making good money, but it wasn't good money in the sense of like building financial freedom or having the type of wealth that you could, do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want, right? It wasn't that type of stability. But it allowed me the ability to go and just like travel the world and see all these beautiful places and climb on all these amazing rocks and meet amazing people. But it's just not something to like, I wouldn't glorify it and say like, when you think about professional athletes, usually, unless you're in like the top 1% of those athletes, you're not making the kind of like life-changing money that you're going to be able to retire on. Right. And that's where I was. I could keep doing it, but there was always going to be this like shelf life, because as a professional athlete, you're only as good as your body will allow you to be. And as you get older, your body won't allow you to be as good as you were when you're younger. So your earning potential starts to dwindle. So, but for me at the time, it wasn't about that. It was just like about the raw expression of like just living out in the wilderness in the dirt. Like that was fun to me. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm too soft for that. I can't do that anymore. But when I was young, that's what I wanted to do.
I think the thing that's interesting though is that, I mean, obviously we're talking about rock climbing for you, but I think we can expand this, because there's something with, athletics, with arts, with expression, where, when you talk about the financial side of it, it's that financial stability. And obviously corporate America is one route that many people go, but even that has its downfalls, right? Like, you don't necessarily get a guaranteed job for the next 20 years. So, and if you're in this space where you're enjoying what you do, but your body may come out, whether you're weightlifting, you're a professional athlete, you're an artist, you're a musician, you're a writer, you are constantly looking at, how do I stabilize my finances so that I feel like I can continue to pursue this passion. And for you, you ended up switching to writing, which I know a lot of writers, and many of them will say the same thing, is that, hey, it's good to have some of that residual income, but on the same note, you still kind of have the same challenges unless you've gotten to the point where you're getting that kind of residual income coming in that you can slowly just live off of that. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, because it sounds like writing wasn't necessarily your primary passion, but ultimately you did find that investing in real estate was a path that you could continue to explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, writing is very similar in the same way, like being a professional athlete. Unless you're in that top 1% to 2%, you're not, again, making like life-changing amounts of money. And again, like, for me at that point in my life, I really wasn't overly concerned with making money. It was more about the act of creation and expression, and like trying to find intersections where that could also, support a life. But the problem a lot of writers will run into is that one, it's lonely, it's hard, you're doing it all by yourself, and it's a grind. And there's never any guarantee that your next book is going to do as well as your last book. And you're always kind of waiting for that one breakout success. And one of the things I really loved about business is that it's kind of like the inversion of being a professional athlete or a writer, where in those activities, only a very small minority of people are going to have outsized results relative to the rest of the world, right? But in business, you can do incredibly well, like just by being slightly above average. Like you don't need to be the best. You don't need to have a breakout success to be able to build like a 6, 7, 8-figure business. You just need to understand the fundamentals of like, how does a business work? And when we get to real estate, it's even more, I would say, democratized or meritocratized. I'm making up words now, but we're going to go with that, where it's not, you don't have to get lucky to strike it successful. And there's always that element in rock climbing or in writing where you have to have a little bit of luck. Whereas real estate, if you understand the fundamentals, if you're patient, you're diligent, you're consistent, and you follow through on a long enough time frame, it can't help but work out. This is one of the things that you can think about as the difference between the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Like achievement really is a science, and in business, it's very much understand how like to build a product that people want, how to deliver it at a margin that you can profit off of, and then figure out how to deliver on that consistently. Like regardless of the business, you can do that and you can be successful. So that's what I really liked about it, is that like it's wide open pastures for most people to be able to go in and find success.
Yeah, I like that, because you talked about the luck aspect and really removing that for many investors, right? Or many entrepreneurs is like, you want to still have the flexibility and the lifestyle you're looking to create and have this passion. But, in the business space, it's not as much about being lucky, because you can create a quality business, an average business, quite frankly, and be really successful and make enough money to take care of your needs, as opposed to needing that luck factor where it comes from, whether it be genetics or, being in the right place at the right time or living in the right markets to be successful. So I think a lot of that is really important for people to understand, and why we like something like real estate as a great investing tool. Now, we talked about you writing books. One of the books you wrote was Passive Investing Made Simple. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about why you decided to write this book, and what does the listener get when they take this book and listen to and read it? Yeah.
So this book really first it started because we were having so many conversations with potential investors. And they were always asking the same questions. If they're brand new to this and they've never heard of an apartment syndication or passive investing or any of this stuff, then it's all very overwhelming. And we can sit down and we can have conversations about it. But a lot of times, as you're sitting down in a one-on-one conversation and you're explaining something, if somebody doesn't quite understand it, they're generally not going to stop you and say, I don't really understand that. They might say it once and be like, hey, can you re-explain that? I don't quite understand what a cap rate is, right? And you could explain it again, but generally, if they don't get it the second time, they're just going to go, oh, okay. And they're going to go along with it. But they still don't really understand what's going on. And so the confused mind says no, and they feel stupid to ask the question of like, I don't understand this still. And so we're like, well, how can we bridge that gap? Because like the people that initially started investing with us, it's probably the same with a lot of the operators out there, is that like your friends and your family, your first string contacts, they see what you're doing. They're like, that's cool. I trust you. Let's go do that thing together. But they don't live and breathe and dream about real estate. They know that it's a powerful vehicle to invest in, but they don't necessarily want to leave their W-2 and they don't want to get a master's degree in it. And the problem was, like, as we were looking around, there's a lot of resources out there for people who want to be like us. If you want to learn how to go find apartment buildings and how to buy them and how to operate them, how to be an active investor, there's plenty of resources out there. But for people who are like, I just want to be passive, I want to understand this vehicle well enough to take action, to profit from it and not get taken advantage of, well, there just wasn't very much. And in fact, there's like maybe one or two other books on this topic out there. Like one really good one is The Hands-Off Investor by Brian Burke. Now, that book is fantastic, but one of the problems with it was that, and this is coming from, some of the readers that have reached out to us, is that book is a bit more like drinking from a fire hose. It's very in depth. Whereas what we're trying to create is a little bit more of a water fountain, something that's consumable, that teaches you what you need to know, the bare fundamentals, and simplify it in a way that it makes sense, regardless of like your level of sophistication, and give you the confidence at the end that you know how to do the things that are the most important, which is how to find and vet operators, how to analyze a market, and how to underwrite a deal. Like once you understand those concepts, then you're going to be able to succeed. So that's really where the book came from, was designed for that. But one of the other markets, and this was totally unexpected and unintentional, but a lot of operators and capital raisers have reached out and they're like, we like this book because we talk in a lot of metaphors and try to break things down simply in ways that, like, my sister, who's maybe a teacher, she can understand it, right? So we use these metaphors that try to break down these complex topics. And so it actually became this resource for capital raisers to help them talk to their investors in a way that helps them connect a little bit more. So that was kind of a cool side consequence of it as well.
No, that's awesome. And you're right. I mean, there's different resources available for those individuals who are looking to be active, and maybe not as much for those who are looking to be more passive. When you talk to passive investors or folks who've read this book, what are some of those key insights that they take away from the book that really help them become better investors?
So one is like just understanding all the different ways that they can get involved. Like, one of the things when you look at like a passive investment in an apartment building, let's say, like there's a high hurdle to get over, which is the minimum investment is usually fairly high, right? Like $50,000 is the general industry-wide average that we see the most commonly. That's a lot of money for most people. And they're like, I don't have that just sitting around. One of the things that we talk about in the book is that there are other ways that you can invest in these vehicles that you might not realize you have money sitting there. You know, like the 401k, the Roth IRA, these are great options. Life insurance is another option, a HELOC or home equity line of credit. Like these are alternative ways. And once you start seeing the options, not saying like you have access to all those options or that you're even going to want to pursue them or that they're right for your situation, but just to realize like, oh my gosh, there are options available. There are ways I can do this. And that just starts to breed the confidence and the belief that you can. Because ultimately, if you don't believe that you can participate in this vehicle, then it doesn't matter, like everything else that follows after it. You're not going to take the action necessary. So that's number one, is like helping people understand, like, you can do this. Like there's a way, and we can help you find that way.
Yeah, that's great information. You're right. So many people, they are interested. You know, you listen to a show like this, you get excited about real estate, you get excited about maybe investing in apartments, but challenge is, do you have the money sitting around ready to invest? And certainly the higher net worth individuals have that capital, but there are a lot of people, especially the teachers, the police officers, the firefighters, or working class population. They may not have this kind of capital sitting around, but your point is they may. And if you understand where to look and understand where there's different resources between retirement accounts and maybe equity that's tied up in a home, there may be other ways to invest in these deals. So definitely is worth reading, and just to learn more about what those options are. We kind of started talking about passive investing and got into the book a little bit. I want to step back a little bit and just talk about why apartments. For that person who's reading that book, why should they be looking to invest in apartments? What are some of the benefits for those people who are not maybe as gung-ho about real estate in general, and just trying to figure out, hey, I've got some money in my 401k, maybe got a little bit of money in the stock market. Why should I even consider looking at real estate or apartment syndications?
So the way I think about it is that there's 5 really big reasons that I personally invest in apartment buildings versus other asset classes. And within real estate, just know that there's like a lot of ways that you can make money. So I'm not saying apartments are better than mobile home parks or self-storage. Like there's just different strokes for different folks. And I'm just a fan of like picking a lane and staying in it. And that's my lane is multifamily. And the 5 things that I get out of it is control, stability, cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits. So those 5. Control is the fact that at the end of the day, I'm not investing in some nameless, faceless corporation on the stock exchange, right? Like I have the ability to go and see my residents, to work with them one-on-one, so that when things happen in the world like COVID and suddenly there's an eviction moratorium, well, I'm not just a victim that has to sit by and say, well, this is just a reality. I can't do anything about it. I can actually be proactive. I can take action. I can go work with those families and say, hey, here's some rent control assistance programs. Let's get you connected with that stuff. So when things go wrong, I can do something about it. The stability is just, housing is something that we all need, right? It's a fundamental human need. And so from a stability standpoint, like you're always on the right side of the supply demand curve, which is that people need a place to live. So it's always going to be in demand. But also, as you go larger in apartment buildings, you get the efficiencies of scale, which is if you have 100 units and somebody moves out, cool. Like you're still cash flowing. Like you're only 1% vacant. That's okay. When I first started, I started with a triplex, and that was a little bit scarier because if one person moves out, suddenly I'm 33% vacant. Like suddenly I'm not cash flowing so good. So I like the stability, the inherent stability that the larger assets have. The cash flow is just a function of any healthy business. Any healthy business should be kicking off a profit. If it's not, it's not a good business. Like it's not going to survive on its own long term. I like an apartment building that's kicking off cash flow on a quarterly basis. That tells me that it's nice and healthy. It has a surplus of money coming in, which then gets redistributed to our investors, which is great for living off of or reinvesting and all those things. But cash flow for me is just like a sign of a healthy company. The appreciation side of things, and this is reason number 4 I love apartments, and this is probably the biggest one, honestly, is just the way that these buildings are valued allows us a lot of control in how we force appreciation. And, we do that through the value add model. There's a lot of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, we can make our buildings more valuable. We can do that by increasing revenue, decreasing expenses. And I love that because then we're rewarded for our operational expertise. Like we're not just riding organic appreciation, hoping the market gets better. We can actually go in there and do things that then we can say, if we do X and we receive Y, then it's going to lead to Z valuation. And that's really cool. And then there's the tax benefits, which, owning real estate is one of the best things in addition to like investing in oil or energy. Like if you want tax benefits and limiting your taxable liabilities, there's very few assets that can do that better than real estate. So those are my 5 reasons: control, stability, cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits.
No, great information right there. And I think it goes for most people because if you're looking to invest, this is an asset class that is great for the reasons you've listed. And I think the thing that's really interesting from a passive standpoint is you don't have to become the expert here. You can invest passively, get all the benefits that Anthony just talked about without having to learn all the ins and outs of how to be a great landlord. And that's one of the reasons we're big fans of apartment investing and real estate. Because, listen, not everybody wants to be a landlord. Not everybody wants to learn how, what the laws are for leases and everything else that's involved. But you can work with a group like Anthony's and get the same benefits. So we really think that there's some great benefits there. Anthony, let's talk a little bit more about, actually, before we do that, I know that you have some information available for anybody who's interested in investing. They can go to your website, invictusmultifamily.com. And then also I know that you've got this book available for purchase right now. Can you just talk about where we could find this book?
Yeah. So like we were talking about the book and it is out there for sale. It hit number 1 on Amazon, which is really cool. So you can go buy it if you want to, but like, honestly, we're not really trying to make money off the book. We just want to get the information out there. And if you think that this book is something that would benefit you, then just shoot me an email, Anthony@invictusmultifamily.com. Tell me that you heard my conversation with John here, and I'll send you out a copy of the book. Just give me your address and we'll send that out. If you want to buy it, you can go to Amazon or go to thepassiveinvestingbook.com. But otherwise, like for us, our big passion is just spreading the word and like the knowledge that this investment vehicle is available. Like regardless of if you come and invest with us or you invest with John or anybody else, like that doesn't really matter. What really gets us jazzed at the end of the day is to see the light bulb go off in people's mind that they go, oh my goodness, I can do this. This is available to me. So if this book can serve as like the launching off point for that, reach out and we'll get you a copy.
Yeah, and your point was about control. I love, and that's the whole thing for us is just take control of your financial future. You talked about starting off in a space where you didn't know how you're going to provide. And that's something that, those are the kind of fears that most people, don't want to have, not understanding how you're going to take care of your family. What happens if you lose your day job? What happens if you lose your primary source of income? And investing in these kind of deals allows you to take a little bit more control over your financial future. So definitely check it out if you want to get the book, or email Anthony at his email address, Anthony@invictusmultifamily.com, if you do want to get a copy of that book. So we've been talking about the book. We've talked about you becoming an author. I actually want to talk about maybe some best writing principles, right? You've written 12 books. I know a lot of people who are looking to raise money for deals. They are focused on maybe creating content and putting information out there, but not everybody's a great writer. So talk to us about maybe what did you do to become a better writer, and what is your writing process?
Mm-hmm. So if you want to get good at anything, it's a matter of repetition. And the more that we can compress the repetitions and we can increase that feedback loop that we're getting in terms of not just doing the thing, but getting feedback from somebody saying like, this is good, this is not good. That's going to help. And it's basic, but it's not easy. And if you want to become a good writer, the only way to do that is to write more and to write a lot. It's a consistency over intensity thing. If you want to be a good writer, don't just say, I'm going to sit down and write 1,000 words a day for the next 30 days. You have to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write maybe 500 words a day every day for the next 5 years. And in 5 years, I know that's a long time frame, but you're going to be such a good communicator by the end of that. Like writing, I think, is one of the most important skills that any of us can develop, not just because it allows us to express ourselves to other people effectively, which can then lead us to, impacting the world and having influence, but it allows us to codify our own thought processes. A lot of times, like for me with ADHD, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of people, is like your thoughts are a chaotic jumble. And sometimes you don't really know what you think on a thing until you're forcing yourself to sit down and write on it. And it's like taking the ephemeral nature of thought and making it physical. And it's forcing it out through the pen tip, one word at a time. And it's slow and it's cumbersome and it's hard. And this is why people don't do it. And it feels awkward. And it's like, this isn't very good. But if you stick with it long enough, you're going to not just get the benefits of being a great communicator, but you're going to come to a better understanding of what it is that you think and believe on different topics. And that will allow you then to, when you're speaking, let's say, with an investor or a broker, to more effectively communicate what it is that you think and believe on a topic. And that's then going to lead to being more impactful, more influential. So if you want to be a writer, the number one thing I would say is carve out a time every single day and hold yourself accountable. Make it sacred. I do it in the morning. First thing is it's a minimum of a half an hour for me just to sit down and write. And it doesn't matter if you're writing on a topic in particular or a blog or writing a book. Just write. It could be stream of consciousness at first. Just get the words out and go through the mechanics of it. And after time, it's going to get easier. But the one solace I'll give you guys is that I've written over 1 million words and published over 1 million words at this point. I don't really like writing. I like having written. So in the moment of writing, it is hard and it sucks and I hate every minute of it. After I'm done writing, I'm always glad I did. Always. And so just keep that in mind. Like it doesn't get easier. You just get better.
There you go. Great insight right there. And I like the last part you said, right? Because you don't have to love it to like the result and how it makes you feel when you're done. And anything that is going to help you grow, to get better, to improve those skills, you may not love the process. You may not enjoy every moment of that. And I think that sometimes we have this impression that great writers love writing, or people who are fit love working out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those people just really like the benefits that come from doing the work, and focusing on the way it makes you feel when you've completed it is more important than the pain you feel when you're going through it. So if you want to be a better writer, or quite frankly, better at anything, you talked about really putting in the repetitions and then closing that feedback loop to make sure that you are getting the information you need so you can improve and continue to get better and better. And I like the fact that you talked about how writing actually helps you better communicate your thoughts to investors, to brokers, and others, because it allows you to start to formulate the logic behind what you think and really articulate that in a clearer voice, because it's difficult, right? I mean, if you want to invest in deals, well, what does the deal look like to you, right? If you haven't taken the time to write out what your deal criteria is, why you like these kind of deals or why you don't like these kind of deals, it's harder to convey that to a broker or even to an investor about why you've made the decisions you've made. And writing is a process that allows you to start to pare that down a little bit and give you some clarity, and also allow you to have a bit more authority in your decision making, because maybe you're wrong. Maybe you've had a belief, and then as you start to write it out, you're like, actually, does that make sense? Maybe I should do some more research on this and figure out whether or not this is actual or not.
John, that is like a killer point. And I can't tell you like how important that bit is that when you start to write down things, you start to notice the holes in your own thinking. And you start to go, oh, maybe I don't understand this as well as I thought I did. Or maybe I'm realizing I'm wrong. I thought this was the case, but now that I see it and I'm thinking through this really hard now, I'm like, this doesn't add up. And that is one of the most powerful gifts that you can give yourself, is like to have that self-awareness of where your thinking is wrong and being open to it. And so if you get nothing else out of writing, if that's the one thing that it holds you to is like just getting better clarity, then it's a gift worth giving yourself.
Yeah, there's a quote that I read. I'm going to mess it up, but you'll get it loosely. And it's that the best way to teach, the best way to learn is to teach, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're trying to teach other people, it forces you to look within on your own beliefs, to double check, triple check, your information, making sure that you understand why you're doing something the way you're doing it. And writing is one of the ways, especially if you're trying to convey this message to other people, in a book like the book you wrote on Passive Investing Made Simple, or other thoughts on social media. But if you're actually taking the time to make sure you're putting out quality information, then you're going to make sure that you're getting quality information and you're sharing that in the right way. So really think it's a strong tool that many people should leverage, no matter if you are looking to be an author, whether you're looking to raise capital for deals, or quite frankly, just looking to better communicate and better improve your thought process. And I think for you, just talking about, challenges you face with ADHD, I think it just goes to show that, hey, this is a way to take more control, not just of your finances, like we were talking about before, but of your mind. And if you can take control of your mind, you can take more control over your life in general.
Yeah, the what you're talking about there of like teaching to really solidify the learning is something that we believe very firmly at Invictus, and we take it to our coaching and our training with our in-house employees. So when we bring on a new employee, like right now we have a new person that just started earlier this week. Like we're talking a lot about, okay, your goal right now is you're going to learn how to do this thing, and then you're going to do this thing. And then you're going to come back and you're going to teach me how to do the thing, right? So it's learn, do, teach. And that's how we're going to train is I know how to do the thing, but I need you to teach it back to me now. And in that process of you teaching it to me again, so now the trainee becomes the trainer, you start to notice where the flaws are and you're thinking where you don't necessarily understand it really well. But at the end of the day, whether it's fitness, it's writing, it's just self-improvement, personal development, or whatever, just understand that discipline always beats motivation. So yeah, you can be really motivated because it's at the start of the new year and you set your resolutions and it's going to be the year that you write a book. You're going to get in the best shape of your life. You're going to go out and buy all these buildings and do all this great stuff. Okay, motivation's great, but it's going to wane. There's going to be a morning where you wake up and you just don't want to go to the gym. What is there that's going to get you through is the discipline of taking action, right? So focus more on building the muscle of discipline rather than riding the wave of motivation, because that will go away. That happens to all of us. So that's the only thing. And it's really counterintuitive for me. Is I really severe ADHD. I hate discipline. It was one of the things I hated when I was young. And to realize it was really oxymoronic almost. Whereas I had this realization in my late 20s, early 30s, where it's oh my goodness, it's through structure and discipline that I find freedom. By structuring my day, by structuring my calendar, by structuring and disciplining myself and holding myself accountable, that's actually where I find freedom to express myself. Because before I had that structure and that discipline, there was just the infinite multitude of possibilities and options. And you could go in a million different directions, but your wheels are just spinning and you're never getting traction in any one of those directions. And so I found that by just bringing structure and discipline into my life is what really allowed me to finally start making meaningful progress towards the goals.
No, great information, man. I appreciate you clarifying those thoughts. They're really great insights. If you want to learn more about Anthony and his company, Invictus Multifamily, just go to invictusmultifamily.com. And if you would like to get a copy of that book, just email him at anthony@invictusmultifamily.com. Now we're going to move on to our round of insights. Anthony, what's a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success?
A big one. When I first started actively managing my own real estate portfolio, I partnered with my best friend and we were going to buy this quad together. And we got to the day before closing and I had to pull the parachute and back out of the deal. And that cost us a lot of earnest money. It hurt that relationship very badly. But it had to be done because I was noticing that we were already off on the wrong foot in terms of our partnership. And every business that I've had that's succeeded has been off the back of a strong partnership. Every business I've had that's failed, and I've had plenty that have failed, has been because there was a bad partnership. In that partnership in particular, we were best friends, but we had the same strengths. We had the same weaknesses. We were trying to pick up the same balls and we were both ignoring the same balls. And we were doing a bad job because we are so close and we're best friends of holding one another accountable and saying like, you need to be doing that. What is the expectation? And we weren't doing any of that stuff. And so it was creating all this friction. And at the end of the day, I made the hard decision that, okay, this deal, it's better to walk away and burn that bridge than it is to burn the relationship, because on a long enough time frame, things that start hard tend to end hard.
Great points. I appreciate you sharing that. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
I really like the app Pocket. It's just a way of when you probably, if you're like me, you get all these articles, all these different newsletters and things that you're like, oh, I want to read this, but you don't have time to read it in the moment. So Pocket is just a great way of like saving things into an app that you can come back to later when you have the time to actually consume and read, instead of just having a million tabs open on my computer. So that's really basic, but it's actually really awesome.
What book outside of your own, what book have you recommended or gifted the most in the last year?
In the last year, it's been The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He didn't write it himself. It was written by a guy who went and took Naval Ravikant, who's just this great thinker. He's the founder of Angel List, Silicon Valley angel investor, just brilliant thinker who has a lot of great content on Twitter and podcasts and all these things. So a guy just took all of his lessons, put it into a book. It's very consumable. It's brilliant insights. I gift that thing out like a hotcake.
There you go. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I already talked about writing, so that would be a cop-out if I go with that. So the big one is time blocking. Every night before bed, I spend 30 minutes blocking out minute by minute my day for the next day and saying, if I was to have the best day ever, what would it look like? And then I go and I plan that best day. And it doesn't always work out like that. Like life happens. We have to be, patient and forgiving with ourselves. But by having a picture of what that best day is going to look like, it makes it that much more likely that I'm going to get real close to hitting it.
There you go. Great tips there. All right. We know that you are in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So give me the best place to grab a bite to eat.
There's so many good places. Honestly, the food scene here is it's incredible. Okay. So if you like Costa Rican, there's this place called Marna's Cafe. It is, I did not know that Costa Rican food was like this good until I discovered this a couple months ago. It's fantastic. So if you're in town, hit me up. I'll take you to Marna's. You will not regret it.
There you go. Well, I don't think many people would have guessed that Minneapolis has great Costa Rican food, but there you go. Check that out next time you are in the Minneapolis market. Anthony, great tips, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. I like that you shared your story, talking about the challenges you faced early on, going from a professional rock climber to an author, ultimately to real estate investing. Was kind of skipped over the whole window washing thing, which I think would have been really interesting to talk about by itself. But ultimately, getting into real estate, having $30 million worth of real estate under management right now with your vertically integrated firm. And then also the book you've penned, Passive Investing Made Simple. And if anybody is interested in learning more about either investing with you or the book, you can email Anthony at invictusmultifamily.com or check out the website, invictusmultifamily.com. I just want to thank you again for coming on the show, sharing those insights with us, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you again, Anthony.
Thanks, John.